The crystal flute made a sharp ting, ting, ting sound as the silver fork struck against it, cutting through the low hum of conversation in the ballroom. I stood by the service entrance, smoothing the wrinkles of my black blazer. To the 300 guests filling the room, I looked like just another member of the event staff, efficient, invisible, blending into the background. And that was exactly how my family wanted it. Attention, everyone. Can I get everyone's attention, please? My sister, Tiffany, stood on the raised platform at the center of the room. She was a vision in a shimmering silver gown that hugged every curve, the kind of dress that cost more than my first car. Beside her stood Marcus, her fiancé, looking dashing and undeniably wealthy in his bespoke tuxedo. He had that easy, confident smile of a man who owned the world, or at least a significant portion of its real estate market. My mother, Linda, was beaming from the front table, clutching my father's arm. They looked like royalty surveying their kingdom. It was a kingdom paid for by me, though nobody in this room, except perhaps my accountant, knew that truth. I just want to thank you all for coming to celebrate our love, Tiffany cooed, her voice dripping with a practiced sweetness that made my stomach turn. She squeezed Marcus's hand. And I want to give a special shout-out to the people who made this possible. My wonderful parents for their endless support. Applause rippled through the room. My parents preened. And Tiffany's eyes scanned the room until they locked onto me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a predatory grin, sharp and cold. And to my big sister, Riley, standing over there by the kitchen door. The spotlight swung around, blinding me for a second. I instinctively straightened my spine. I saw guests craning their necks, whispering. Riley insists on helping the catering staff today, Tiffany laughed, a tinkling sound that was meant to be charming but felt like broken glass. You know, it really suits her. Some people are born to lead, and some are born to serve. It's important to know your place in the world. A few people chuckled nervously. Marcus looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. He whispered something to Tiffany, but she ignored him. Honestly, she continued, her voice gaining a theatrical pity. It's a good reminder for us all. Riley is the living proof of why we need to make good choices. A single mother at 30, struggling to make ends meet, always needing a handout, she's like the cautionary tale of the family. My heart hammered against my ribs. Struggling. Handout. The audacity was breathtaking. But we love her anyway. Tiffany chirped, raising her glass high. Even if she is a bit of an unwanted maid today. To Riley, thank you for checking the napkins. The room erupted in laughter. It wasn't warm laughter, it was mocking. It was the sound of high society looking down at something they deemed beneath them. My brother, Chad, who was sitting near the front, stood up. He was already swaying, his face flushed with the expensive Cabernet I had selected for the menu. Here, here. Chad slurred, raising his glass. To Riley. The used product. The laughter grew louder. My mother didn't hush him. She didn't look away in shame. She laughed. She actually threw her head back and laughed, clapping her hands, as if her son had just told the wittiest joke of the century. I felt the blood drain from my face. I gripped the clipboard in my hand so hard the plastic edge dug into my palm. Used product. That was what they called me. Because I had a son. Because I wasn't married to a billionaire. I looked at Marcus. For a second, our eyes met across the room. He wasn't laughing. He was frowning, looking from Chad to Tiffany, a flicker of confusion in his dark eyes. He looked disturbed. But he didn't stop it. He was the groom, he was the prize they had all been hunting for. I took a deep breath, forcing the burning sensation in my throat to subside. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march up to that microphone and tell them exactly who owned this building. I wanted to tell them that the venue owner they had been bragging about knowing personally was me. That the LLC listed on the contract, Phoenix Events, was my company. But I didn't. Not yet. I had learned long ago that reacting emotionally only gave them fuel. They thrived on my tears. They fed on my outbursts. If I made a scene now, I would just be the crazy, jealous sister ruining Tiffany's big moment. Instead, I offered a tight, professional nod, as if I accepted their insults as part of the job description. I turned on my heel and pushed through the swinging doors into the kitchen. The noise of the party cut off instantly, replaced by the clatter of pans and the shouting of chefs. Ms. Riley. Sarah, my head coordinator and closest confidant, rushed over to me. She looked furious. Did you hear what they said out there? I swear to God, Riley, give me the word and I will cut the power to the microphones. I'll turn on the sprinklers. Say the word. I leaned against the stainless steel counter, exhaling a shaky breath. No, Sarah. Keep the lights on. Keep the champagne flowing. But they're humiliating you. In your own building. Sarah hissed, lowering her voice so the temp staff wouldn't hear. Does that guy, the groom, does he even know this is your place? No, I said quietly. Tiffany told him the owner is a mysterious investor she charmed. She told him I'm just the operations manager she got hired out of pity. Sarah looked at me with wide, sad eyes. Why do you let them do this to you? You pay their mortgage. You paid for Chad's rehab. You're paying for this party. I know, I whispered. Then why? I looked down at my phone. On the lock screen was a picture of Leo, my 8-year-old son. He was smiling, missing a front tooth, holding up a science fair trophy. He was the only pure thing in my life. The only reason I hadn't cut them off years ago was the fear that they would sue for grandparents' rights or drag Leo into their toxicity. I had been trying to keep the peace. I had been trying to be the good daughter. But being called a used product in front of 300 of the city's elite. That was a shift. Something inside me, a tether that had been fraying for years, finally snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was silent, like a wire cut in the dark. Sarah, I said, my voice steady now. Do we still have the security footage recording in the main hall? Always. Cloud backup. Good. And the audio? Crystal clear. I straightened my blazer again. The hurt was still there, burning in my chest, but it was being overtaken by something colder. Something useful. Don't cut the power, I repeated, a small, grim smile touching my lips. Let them talk. Let them say everything they want to say. Let them dig the hole so deep they can never climb out. Riley? Sarah asked, looking at me with concern. What are you going to do? I'm going to go check on the cake, I said. And then, I'm going to call my lawyer. To understand why I didn't flip the table right then and there, you have to understand the architecture of my family. I was never the daughter, I was the retirement plan. I was the insurance policy. I was the ATM. Growing up, the dynamic was clear. Tiffany was the golden child. She was beautiful, bubbly, and allergic to responsibility. When she broke a neighbor's window, my parents said she was spirited. When I got a B+ instead of an A, I was lazy and ungrateful for the sacrifices we make. My father, Robert, was a man of big dreams and bad investments. He lost our childhood home when I was 19 due to a gambling problem he called stock market speculation. My mother, Linda, was a woman who believed appearance was the only currency that mattered. As long as we looked rich, it didn't matter if the electricity was about to be cut off. I was the one who absorbed the shock. I dropped out of my dream college program to work 2 jobs so we wouldn't be homeless. I started waiting tables, then bartending, then managing. I realized I had a knack for logistics, for organization, for making chaos into order. 10 years ago, I started Phoenix Events with a small business loan and sheer desperation. I worked 18-hour days. I missed parties, I missed dates, I missed sleep. I built it brick by brick. Then I expanded into real estate, buying distressed commercial properties and turning them into gold mines. But to my family, my success wasn't something to be proud of. It was a resource to be mined. They didn't see me as a CEO. They saw me as the person to call when the credit card was declined. "Riley, honey," Mom would say, her voice sugary sweet on the phone. "Your father's back is acting up, and we need to see that specialist. Can you cover it? It's just $5,000. Riley, Chad would text. "Got into a fender bender. Need bail. Don't tell Mom." "Riley," Tiffany would whine. "I need a deposit for this apartment or I'm on the street." I paid. I always paid. Why? Because I was desperate for their approval. I thought if I wrote enough checks, one day they would look at me with the same adoration they gave Tiffany. I thought I could buy their love. It was pathetic, I know. But abuse trains you to seek validation from your abusers. The flashback that hit me hardest as I stood in that kitchen wasn't from childhood, though. It was from just 3 weeks ago. I was in my office, the real one, in the penthouse of the downtown tower I owned, when my mother stormed in past my secretary. "We need $50,000, Riley," she demanded, not even bothering with a hello. She threw her designer handbag onto my mahogany desk. I looked up from my spreadsheets. "Hello to you too, Mom. What is it this time?" "It's for the flowers," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "For the wedding. Tiffany wants the orchids imported from Thailand. The florist is demanding a deposit. $50,000 for flowers?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Mom, that's insane. Even for a luxury wedding. And I've already given you a budget. You've blown through the wedding fund I set up by double." "Don't be stingy, Riley," Mom snapped, her face twisting into a scowl. "This is your sister's big day. She's marrying a billionaire. Do you know what that means for us? For all of us. Once she's married to Marcus, we're set. We won't need your little handouts anymore. But we need to seal the deal." "My little handouts paid for your car, your house, and the clothes on your back," I said, feeling a familiar throbbing in my temples. "And if Marcus is so rich, why isn't he paying for the flowers?" Mom's eyes narrowed. "Because Tiffany told him her family is wealthy. She told him we are contributing. We have to keep up appearances, Riley. If he thinks we're poor, he might call it off. Do you want to ruin your sister's happiness out of jealousy?" Jealousy. That was their favorite weapon. "I'm not jealous," I said, signing a check just to make her leave. "But this is the last one, Mom. I mean it. My cash flow isn't infinite." She snatched the check from my hand, checking the zeros. "You have plenty. We know how much this building generates. Don't lie to your mother." She walked to the door, then paused and looked back. "Oh, and for the wedding, try to dress down, okay? We don't want you confusing the guests. You know you have that severe look. It's better if you stay in the background." Standing in the kitchen now, watching the chefs plate the filet mignon I had paid for, that memory burned. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my erasure. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I navigated to the family support folder, a digital trail of every transfer, every bill paid, every loan never returned over the last decade. Tuition for Chad's college he never finished, $80,000. Chad's legal fees, $45,000. Mom and Dad's mortgage payoffs, $450,000. Tiffany's allowance over 5 years, $200,000. The numbers stared back at me. Over $1 million. I had poured $1 million into a black hole, and in return, I was the unwanted maid. I wasn't a person to them. I was a salary they felt entitled to. "Ms. Riley." It was Sarah again. "The groom. Mr. Marcus, he's asking for the manager. He's asking for you. My stomach flipped. Had he figured it out? Where is he? In the hallway, near the restrooms. He looks confused. I took a deep breath. Okay. I'll handle it. I checked my reflection in the chrome refrigerator door. I looked tired, yes. But underneath the exhaustion, I saw something else emerging. The eyes of a woman who built an empire in a shark tank. They thought I was weak because I was generous. They were about to learn that generosity is a choice, not a weakness. And choices can be revoked. I walked out to meet the man who was about to marry my sister, wondering if he was another villain in this story, or just another victim. The hallway was quieter, the muffled bass of the band vibrating through the floorboards. Marcus was standing near a large potted fern, checking his watch. When he saw me, he straightened up. "Riley, right?" he asked. His voice was deep, polite. He didn't sound like a man who enjoyed mocking single mothers. "Yes, Marcus. Is everything all right with the service?" I kept my tone neutral, professional. The perfect employee. "The service is fine." "Excellent, actually," he said, looking at me with a strange intensity. I wanted to apologize. For what Chad said in there. And Tiffany's joke. It was in poor taste. I blinked. An apology? That was new. In my family, apologies were as rare as unicorns. "Thank you," I said stiffly. "I'm used to their sense of humor." "You shouldn't have to be," he muttered. He looked like he wanted to say more, but just then, the double doors swung open. Tiffany burst out, flushed and slightly manic. "Marcus. There you are." She hooked her arm through his, glaring at me. "Why are you talking to the help? We need to cut the cake." "I was just speaking to your sister, Tiff," Marcus said, pulling his arm back slightly. "Apologizing for the toast." "Oh, don't be silly," Tiffany laughed, waving her hand. "Riley knows we're just teasing. We're family. Families roast each other." "Right, Riley." Her eyes dared me to contradict her. "Right," I said. "Just a roast." "Come on," she dragged him back toward the party. "You can't leave me alone with Aunt Karen." The party eventually moved to a private dining room for the immediate family dinner. I wasn't supposed to sit at the main table. Mom had suggested I eat in the kitchen with the vendors, but Marcus had insisted. "She's the bride's sister," he had said firmly. "She sits with us." So there I was picking at a salad, while my family gorged themselves on lobster and champagne. Leo, my son, was with his babysitter tonight. Thank God. I didn't want him anywhere near this toxicity. "So, Marcus," Chad said, his mouth full of bread. "I was looking at that investment portfolio you mentioned. The crypto thing. I think I'm ready to buy in. I just need a little bridge loan to get started." I saw Marcus's jaw tighten. "We can talk business later, Chad. Tonight is about family." "Right, family," Mom said, raising her glass again. She was drunk. "To my beautiful daughter, who finally landed the big fish." Marcus winced. "Linda, please." Then, Tiffany decided she hadn't had enough attention. She looked across the table at me. "So, Riley," she said loudly. "Where's the little bastard tonight?" The room went dead silent. I put my fork down slowly. "Excuse me." "Leo," she said, smirking. "Where is he? I assumed you couldn't afford a sitter. Did you leave him in the car?" "Don't call my son that," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "Oh, lighten up," Tiffany rolled her eyes. "We all know what he is. A mistake. A reminder of your wild phase." Who was the father again? Some bartender? Or was it a client? I felt the heat rising up my neck. Not embarrassment. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. Tiffany, stop, Marcus said, his voice hard. Why? Tiffany giggled, leaning onto Marcus's shoulder. I'm just saying, Marcus, you have to be careful. Riley is desperate. She's been trying to trap a man for years to pay for that kid. Leo is practically feral. No discipline. No education. I mean, look at who raised him. Snap. That was it. That was the moment. I could handle them insulting me. I could handle them stealing my money. But attacking my son. Calling my sweet, brilliant, kind-hearted boy feral and a bastard. The sorrow I had carried for years evaporated. The desire for their love vanished. In its place, a cold, mechanical clarity took over. It was like a switch had been flipped in the cockpit of my brain. Autopilot off. Combat mode engaged. I looked at Tiffany. Really looked at her. I saw the cruelty in her mouth, the emptiness in her eyes. And then I saw something else. On her wrist, glinting under the chandelier lights, was a bracelet. It was an antique diamond tennis bracelet. Platinum setting. 3 stones were slightly loose. I froze. My grandmother, Nana Rose, had left that bracelet to me in her will. It had disappeared from my jewelry box 3 months ago. I had thought I misplaced it. I had torn my apartment apart looking for it. I had cried over it because it was the only thing I had left of the one person who truly loved me. Nice bracelet, I said. My voice was eerily calm. Tiffany froze. She pulled her sleeve down quickly. Oh, this. It's a knockoff. Costume jewelry. Just something I picked up at the mall. Funny, I said, leaning forward. It looks exactly like the one Nana left me. The one that went missing from my bedroom the last time you visited. Mom intervened instantly. Riley. Don't be accusing your sister of theft on her engagement night. That is her grandmother's bracelet. I gave it to her. You gave it to her. I looked at Mom. It was left to me. In the will. Explicitly. Well, you don't wear jewelry, Mom sniffed. You're always in those drab work clothes. Tiffany is the one who goes to galas. She needs it. It was wasted on you. Besides, family shares. Family shares. They stole my inheritance. They stole my money. And now they were wearing my grandmother's legacy while insulting my child. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my wine. I smiled. It was a terrifying smile, I think, because Chad actually stopped chewing and looked at me warily. You're right, Mom, I said softly. Family shares. I stood up. Excuse me. I need to use the restroom. I walked out of the room with perfect posture. I wasn't going to the restroom to cry. I was going to war. The tears were gone. The provider was dead. The ATM was out of order. From this moment on, I wasn't their daughter or their sister. I was their landlord. I was their creditor. And I was about to call in every single debt. As I walked down the hall, I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I had a feeling the real conversation was about to happen behind my back, and I intended to hear every word of it. The bathroom in the venue was opulent, floor-to-ceiling marble, gold fixtures, fresh lilies in crystal vases. I didn't use the facilities. Instead, I slipped into the last stall, the handicap-accessible one, and locked the door. I sat on the closed lid, pulled my knees up to my chest so my feet wouldn't be visible, and waited. I knew Tiffany. She had the bladder of a hummingbird and the gossip habits of a high school mean girl. She wouldn't be able to resist coming in here to gloat to Mom or call a friend. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, the heavy door creaked open. The click-clack of heels on marble echoed. Ugh, finally, Tiffany's voice. I thought that dinner would never end. Did you see Riley's face when I mentioned the brat? Priceless. You pushed it a bit far, Tiff, Chad's voice. He must have followed her in. It was a single-occupancy luxury lounge area before the stalls, so it wasn't uncommon for people to chat there. Oh, shut up, Chad. She needed to be taken down a peg, Tiffany scoffed. I heard the sound of a compact snapping open. She was touching up her makeup. She was eyeing Marcus. Did you see that? Trying to act all professional and martyr-like. It's pathetic. Does Marcus suspect anything? Chad asked. His voice dropped lower. About the situation. I held my breath, pressing record on my phone screen. The red timer started counting. No, Tiffany laughed. He's clueless. Men see what they want to see. I told him Phoenix Events is the family business. I told him Daddy founded it and Riley is just the operations manager because she couldn't cut it in the corporate world. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. My company. The company I built from nothing while she was partying in Ibiza on my dime. She was claiming it was hers. And he bought that? Chad asked. Hook, line, and sinker. I told him that once we're married, I'm going to take a more active role in ownership. Which means, her voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, we can finally force Riley out. Force her out? Chad sounded skeptical. She does all the work. Exactly. We don't need her, Tiffany said. We can hire a real manager for half her salary. Once I'm Mrs. Marcus Vance, I'll have the legal standing to claim the company was built on family loans. Daddy said he'd back me up on that. We'll sue her for mismanagement if she doesn't sign it over. We'll say she's been embezzling to support her bastard kid. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. They weren't just leeches, they were cannibals. They were planning a coup. They were going to use my own generosity, the money I gave them, as proof that the company was family-funded, then steal it from me and accuse me of embezzlement. What about the house? Chad asked. The big one. Oh, the lake house. Tiffany giggled. Mom's already working on that. Since the deed is technically in the trust, wait, is it in the trust? I think Riley kept that one in her name, Chad said. Doesn't matter, Tiffany dismissed it. After the wedding, Marcus is going to buy us a massive estate. We won't need Riley's scraps. But until then, we need her to pay for the honeymoon. I put the deposit on her Amex this morning. I swiped it from her purse while she was checking the seating chart. Theft. Plain and simple credit card theft. You're crazy, Chad laughed, the sound of ice rattling in a glass. I love it. What about me? Did you ask Marcus about the loan? I'm working on it. Once we're married, his money is my money. And my money is your money. We just have to get that ring on my finger next Saturday. Until then, keep Riley happy enough to sign the checks, but beaten down enough so she doesn't open her mouth. She won't, Chad sneered. She's weak. She's desperate for Mom to love her. She'll never fight back. Exactly, Tiffany said. She's our little golden goose. We just have to pluck her until she's naked, then toss her in the soup. They laughed together. The sound echoed off the marble walls, amplifying the cruelty. All right, let's go back before Marcus gets suspicious, Tiffany said. I need to go act like a blushing bride. The door opened and closed. Silence returned to the bathroom. I sat there in the dark stall, trembling. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. It was the physical reaction to a threat. I looked at my phone. Recording saved. Weak, I whispered to the empty room. Desperate. They had made one fatal miscalculation. They assumed the Riley they knew, the people-pleaser, the doormat, was the only Riley that existed. They didn't know the Riley who negotiated million-dollar contracts with sharks. They didn't know the Riley who fired incompetent contractors without blinking. They thought they were dealing with a sister. They were about to find out they were dealing with a CEO. I stood up, unlocked the stall, and walked to the mirror. I washed my hands, scrubbing them hard, as if to wash away the feeling of being related to these people. I looked at my reflection. My eyes were dry. My jaw was set. "Sarah," I said into my phone as I dialed. "Call Mrs. Higgins. Tell her I need an emergency meeting. Tonight. Midnight. I don't care if she's in her pajamas." "Riley. What happened?" Sarah asked. "I have the evidence," I said. "And Sarah? Pull the security logs for the coat check room. I want to see exactly when Tiffany went into my purse." The game had changed. It wasn't about seeking approval anymore. It was about custody of my life, my assets, and my dignity. I wasn't just going to stop the wedding. I was going to dismantle their entire world. Mrs. Higgins' office was located in a glass-walled building 3 blocks from my venue. At midnight, the city lights below looked like a circuit board, cold, logical, unfeeling. Just how I needed to be. Mrs. Higgins was 70 years old, sharp as a tack, and had a reputation for eating fraudulent business partners for breakfast. She was wearing a silk robe over her business suit, holding a steaming mug of coffee. "This better be good, Riley," she said, adjusting her glasses. I was watching a very compelling documentary on unsolved murders. "It's a murder, all right," I said, tossing a thick file folder onto her desk. "The murder of my relationship with my family." I played her the recording from the bathroom. I showed her the notification from my bank about the charges Tiffany had made on my stolen card. I showed her the family support spreadsheet. Mrs. Higgins listened in silence. Her face was unreadable, a stone mask of professionalism. When the recording finished, ending with Tiffany's line about plucking the golden goose, Mrs. Higgins took a slow sip of her coffee. "Well," she said. "That's certainly actionable." "I want them out," I said. "I want them out of my properties. I want them off my payroll. I want my money back." "Riley, look at me," Mrs. Higgins said, her voice softening slightly. "We can evict them. We can sue for the stolen credit card charges. That's easy. But there's something else you need to see." She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward me. "I've been doing some digging since you called me last week about the weird activity on the company accounts. I didn't want to alarm you until I was sure." She pulled up a document. It was a loan application to a shady offshore lender. "Your parents," she said, pointing to the signatures. "They took out a second mortgage on their house, the one you paid off for them, 6 months ago. But they didn't just stop there. They tried to use Phoenix Events as collateral." "They can't," I said. "They don't own it." "They forged your signature," Mrs. Higgins said calmly. She zoomed in. "It's a good forgery, Riley. Chad probably did it, he's always had a talent for art. They took out $200,000 in your company's name." The room spun. "What?" "Wait, there's more. They defaulted on the payments 2 months ago. The lender is preparing to seize assets. If we don't act, they could freeze your company accounts by next week." I felt sick. Physically sick. They hadn't just used me, they had actively tried to destroy the very source of the money they leached off of. If Phoenix Events went under, I would lose everything. My reputation, my employees' livelihoods, Leo's college fund. "And here is the kicker," Mrs. Higgins said, opening another tab. "Do you know who the primary investor in the holding company that bought that debt is?" I shook my head, numb. "Vance Capital." My eyes went wide. "Marcus." "Indirectly. It's one of his subsidiary firms that buys distressed debt." Marcus Vance likely has no idea his future in-laws are the ones defaulting on a loan his company owns. The irony was staggering. Marcus's company owned the debt my parents had forged my name to create. But Mrs. Higgins, I said, a thought striking me. If Marcus finds out they committed fraud, he won't just break up with Tiffany. He'll prosecute. Exactly, Mrs. Higgins said. Which brings me to my next point. Marcus Vance is actually a client of this firm. Not me personally, but my partner, Mr. Sterling. She tapped her desk. Mr. Sterling told me yesterday that Marcus has hired him to investigate a mystery partner in a business deal. Apparently, his fiancée claims to own a massive event company, but the paperwork doesn't match her story. He's been asking questions. My jaw dropped. He knows. He suspects, Mrs. Higgins corrected. He's a smart man, Riley. He didn't get to be a billionaire by being an idiot. He smells a rat, but he's in love, or at least he thinks he is, so he's in denial. He's looking for proof that Tiffany is telling the truth. He's looking for you, or rather, the person Tiffany claims to be. I sat back in the leather chair, my mind racing. Marcus wasn't a villain. He was the mark. He was being conned just as badly as I was. Tiffany was playing us both. So, Mrs. Higgins said, interlacing her fingers. You have two choices. Choice A, we file a police report right now. Fraud, theft, forgery. Your brother goes to jail. Your parents lose the house. The wedding is off. It's messy, it's public. And choice B. Choice B, Mrs. Higgins smiled, a shark-like grin that matched my own inner feeling. You give Marcus the answers he's looking for. You hand him the receipts. And you let him decide how to handle his bride. I looked at the forged loan document again. I looked at the signature that was supposed to be mine. I want a meeting with Marcus, I said. Without Tiffany. I can arrange that, Mrs. Higgins said. He's coming in tomorrow morning to review his prenup. Which, by the way, Tiffany has been refusing to sign. Of course she has, I muttered. Riley, Mrs. Higgins warned. If you do this, there is no going back. This destroys the family. Permanently. I thought of the used product comment. I thought of Farrell. I thought of the diamond bracelet on Tiffany's wrist. They destroyed the family a long time ago, I said. I'm just signing the death certificate. Good, Mrs. Higgins said. Then get some sleep. You have a promotion to earn. From unwanted maid to head of executions. I left the office, but I didn't go home. I went to my office at the venue. I spent the entire night compiling a dossier. Every bank transfer. The security footage of the theft. The audio recording. The forged loan. It was a heavy stack of papers. It weighed about 2 pounds. But as I held it in my hands as the sun came up, it felt like the heaviest weapon on earth. It was the truth. And the truth, as they say, will set you free. But first, it was going to piss everyone off. The conference room at the law firm was neutral ground. Cold air conditioning, polished oak table, abstract art that cost more than a house. I sat on one side, the dossier in front of me. At 9 a.m. sharp the door opened. Marcus walked in. He looked tired. The dashing groom from the night before was replaced by a businessman with dark circles under his eyes. He stopped when he saw me. Riley. He looked at Mrs. Higgins, then back at me. I thought I was meeting with Sterling about the prenup. You are, Mrs. Higgins said from the corner. But first, you need to see this. Marcus sat down slowly opposite me. He didn't look angry, just wary. What is this? Is Tiffany okay? Tiffany is fine, I said. My voice was steady. But your wallet isn't going to be if you marry her. Marcus stiffened. Excuse me. Look, I know you and Tiffany have sibling rivalry, but this isn't rivalry, Marcus, I interrupted. This is a rescue mission. I slid the dossier across the table. Open it. He hesitated, then flipped open the first page. It was the deed to Phoenix Events. State of incorporation. Owner, Riley Jenkins, he read aloud. He looked up, confused. Tiffany told me this was a family trust. That your father founded it. My father hasn't had a job since 2008, I said bluntly. I founded it. I own 100% of the shares. Tiffany has never worked a day in her life for this company. She isn't an owner. She isn't a partner. She's barely a guest. Marcus flipped the page. He saw the family support spreadsheet. He saw the monthly transfers labeled Tiffany rent, Tiffany car, Tiffany credit card debt. She told me she has a trust fund, Marcus murmured. She said she lives off dividends. Her dividends are my salary, I said. I'm the trust fund. He kept reading. He reached the section about the forged loan. The loan his company owned. They forged your signature? Marcus asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. To defraud me. They didn't know it was you, I explained. They just needed money because I finally cut them off. They're drowning, Marcus. The house, the cars, the lifestyle, it's all smoke and mirrors. They are bankrupt. They see you as the lifeboat. Marcus closed the folder. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. For a long moment, silence hung in the room. I feel like an idiot, he said finally. You're not an idiot, I said gently. They are professionals. They've been gaslighting me for 30 years. You've only known them for 6 months. I asked her, he said, staring at the table. Last night, after the dinner. I asked her point blank about the business. She looked me in the eye and swore on her life that she built it with her father. She cried. She said you were jealous and trying to undermine her. I have a recording of her in the bathroom explaining how she plans to fire me and seize the company after the wedding, I said. Would you like to hear it? He shook his head. No. I believe you. The numbers don't lie. He looked up at me, and I saw a shift. The confusion was gone. In its place was the cold, hard steel of a titan of industry who realized someone tried to steal from him. So, Marcus said. Why show me this now? Why not stop the engagement party? Because I needed proof, I said. And because, honestly, I wanted to see if you were in on it. I needed to know if you were a co-conspirator or a victim. I'm not a conspirator, he said firmly. I despise liars. My first wife, she lied about everything. I swore I wouldn't let that happen again. He clenched his fist. I'm calling it off. I'm going to text her right now. It's over. He reached for his phone. Wait, I said. He stopped. Why? If you cancel now, I said, leaning forward, they will spin it. They will say you got cold feet. They will say I sabotaged you. They will play the victim to the entire world. They will sue me for defamation. It will be messy. So what do you suggest? Let them hang themselves, I said. The wedding is in 3 days. Let them think they've won. Let them walk down that aisle thinking they have successfully scammed a billionaire and erased me. And then, a dark smile touched my lips, we reveal the truth. Publicly. Irrefutably. In front of the very people they tried to impress. We don't just stop the wedding, Marcus. We destroy their credibility so they can never hurt anyone else again. Marcus looked at me. He studied my face, perhaps seeing the resemblance to Tiffany, but seeing none of the vacuousness. You're scary, he said. It was a compliment. I'm a mother protecting her cub, I said. And a business owner protecting her assets. Marcus tapped his fingers on the dossier. I have one condition. What? We do it together. You and me. If I'm going down this road, I want the person who actually owns the venue on my team. Deal, I said. Also, Marcus added, pulling a pen from his pocket. This loan they forged. My company holds the note. Technically, I can call it in immediately due to the fraud clause. Which means I can seize their assets. The house included. Do it, I said without hesitation. Evict them. It will leave them homeless, Marcus noted, testing me. They have a strong daughter, I said. Tiffany is very spirited. I'm sure she'll figure it out. We shook hands. His grip was firm. It wasn't the handshake of a brother-in-law. It was the handshake of a partner in crime. One more thing, I said, standing up. For the rehearsal dinner tomorrow, they want me to work as a server. They want to humiliate me one last time. Marcus's eyes flashed with anger. Don't do it. Tell them to go to hell. No, I said. I'll do it. It will make the ending so much sweeter. Just when you see me serving the appetizers, don't look at me. Don't acknowledge me. Keep playing the role of the oblivious groom. I'm a terrible actor, Marcus admitted. Just think about your bank account, I said. That usually helps men focus. He laughed. A dry, humorless sound. You really are nothing like your sister. Thank God for that, I said. I walked out of the law firm feeling lighter than I had in years. The trap was set. The players were in position. Now, all I had to do was endure 48 more hours of abuse without cracking. I could do that. I had been doing it my whole life. The rehearsal dinner was held in the garden room of my venue. It was a smaller, more intimate affair, just 50 close family and friends. True to their word, my mother and Tiffany had insisted I help out because we are short-staffed. It was a lie. I had 10 servers on the floor. They just wanted to see me in the uniform. They wanted the visual confirmation that I was beneath them. I wore the black vest and white button-down. I tied my hair back in a severe bun. I carried the tray of hors d'oeuvres, miniature crab cakes and beef Wellington bites. Oh, look, I heard Aunt Karen whisper as I passed. Is that Riley? Why is she serving food? I heard she's having money trouble, another cousin whispered back. Linda said she begged for the shift. I kept my face blank. Let them talk. I approached the head table. Chad was sitting there, already 3 whiskeys deep. He stretched his legs out as I walked by. Thump. He tripped me. It was deliberate. He hooked his foot around my ankle. I stumbled hard. The heavy silver tray tipped. I managed to correct my balance at the last second, saving the food from flying onto the floor, but the edge of the tray slammed into my hip bone. Pain shot through my side. A few crab cakes rolled off and splattered onto the carpet. Whoops. Chad laughed loudly. Watch your step, clumsy. You can't even carry a tray right. God, you're useless. My mother sighed loudly. Riley, really? In front of the guests. Clean that up immediately. Not, are you okay? Not, Chad, apologize. Just clean that up. I knelt down on the floor, picking up the squashed crab cakes with a napkin. From this angle, I could see under the table. I saw Chad's shiny dress shoes. I saw Tiffany's heels. Sorry about her, Tiffany said to the table at large. She's always been a bit uncoordinated. Hard to believe we share DNA, right? I stood up, holding the soiled napkins. I looked at Chad. He was smirking, challenging me to say something. I'll get a fresh tray, I said softly. Make it quick, Chad snapped. I'm starving. Later that evening, the speeches began. Tiffany stood up, clinking her glass again. She loved the sound of her own voice. I have an announcement, she beamed. Since Marcus and I are going to be traveling so much for his business, and looking for our dream home, we've decided to let my parents stay in the lake house indefinitely. Applause. And she added, her eyes finding me standing by the bar. We've also decided to do something charitable. Riley. Every head turned to me. Since Riley has been struggling so much lately, Tiffany said, her voice dripping with fake benevolence. Mom and Dad have graciously agreed to let her, and her son, move into the basement apartment of the lake house. Rent-free. Isn't that generous? The room awed. How sweet. How kind. My blood ran cold. The basement. The unfinished basement with the damp problem and the tiny windows. They wanted to move me and Leo, my asthmatic son, into a moldy dungeon while they lived in luxury upstairs. In a house I paid for. Of course, Tiffany added, she'll have to help out with the housekeeping and gardening to earn her keep. But it's better than being on the street, right, Riley? She was publicly enslaving me. She wasn't just taking my company, she was turning me into a live-in servant. I looked at Marcus. He was staring at his plate, his knuckles white as he gripped his fork. He was keeping his promise. He wasn't looking at me. But I could see the vein pulsing in his temple. He was furious. Thank you, Tiffany, I said. My voice was loud, carrying across the room without a microphone. That is truly revealing. You're welcome, she chirped, missing the sarcasm entirely. After the dinner wound down, I went to the loading dock to check the inventory, or pretend to. Mom cornered me there. You embarrassed us, she hissed. Tripping like that. And then that attitude when your sister offered you a home. A home in the basement, Mom. I asked. It's more than you deserve, she spat. You should be grateful. Once Tiffany is married, things are going to change around here. You need to learn humility. I think I've learned enough humility to last a lifetime, I said. Well, learn faster, she warned. Oh, and tomorrow morning, come to the bridal suite early. I have some paperwork for you to sign. Just some legal stuff for the company transfer. Dad says it's routine. Routine, I repeated. Yes. Don't make a fuss, Riley. Just sign it so we can focus on the wedding. She walked away, her heels clicking on the concrete. I watched her go. They were so confident. So arrogant in their victory that they didn't even check to see if the bridge they were standing on was rigged with explosives. Routine paperwork, I whispered to myself. I knew exactly what that paperwork was. It would be a quitclaim deed and a transfer of stock. But Mrs. Higgins and I had prepared a little surprise. I wasn't going to refuse to sign. Oh no. I was going to sign. But not the document they thought. I looked up at the night sky. It was clear. A perfect day for a wedding. A perfect day for a reckoning. The morning of the wedding was chaotic. Hairdressers, makeup artists, florists running around with buckets of white roses. I arrived at the bridal suite at 8 a.m. Tiffany was already in her robe, sipping a mimosa, surrounded by her squad of bridesmaids, girls she had met in college who were just as vapid as she was. Oh look, the help is here, one of them giggled. Riley, grab me a steamer, Tiffany commanded without looking at me. My veil has a wrinkle. In a minute, Mom interjected. She pulled me into the adjoining room. First, business. She closed the door. On the table lay a stack of documents. Here, she said, handing me a pen. Like I said. Routine updates for the company records. Since Tiffany is getting married, we need to update the beneficiary info and structure. I looked at the papers. It was bold. It was a total transfer of assets agreement, effectively gifting 100% of Phoenix events to the Jenkins Family Trust, which listed Tiffany and my parents as the sole trustees. "Mom," I said, pretending to be hesitant. "This says transfer of ownership. Does this mean I don't own the company anymore?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom snapped. "It's just for tax purposes. Marcus's accountants suggested it. It protects the company. You'll still manage things. We just need the legal title to be safe." "Safe from me? And if I don't sign?" I asked. Mom's face hardened. The mask dropped completely. "If you don't sign," she stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "Then we tell Marcus about the time you were arrested." I blinked. "I was never arrested." "We'll tell him you were," she shrugged. "For drugs. Or theft. We'll make something up. We'll ruin you, Riley. We'll sue you for elder abuse. We'll tell the court you're mentally unstable and petition for custody of Leo. Do you want that? Do you want Leo to go into foster care while you fight a legal battle you can't afford?" There it was. The nuclear option. Threatening my son. "You would do that?" I whispered. "To your own grandson?" "I do what I have to do to protect this family," she said coldly. "Now sign the damn papers." She turned her back to pour herself a coffee, giving me the moment I needed. My hands were shaking, but my movements were precise. I had the duplicate folder in my blazer pocket. Mrs. Higgins had prepared it. It looked exactly like their document, same font, same header, same thickness. But the content was very different. This document wasn't a transfer of ownership. It was an admission of guilt. It stated that the undersigned acknowledged they had no ownership stake in Phoenix events, that they had fraudulently accepted funds, and that they agreed to repay all debts immediately. In one smooth motion, I slid their document into my pocket and placed my version on the table. Mom turned back around. "Well," she tapped her foot. I picked up the pen. I made a show of looking defeated. I let my shoulders slump. "Okay," I said, my voice cracking. "I'll sign. Please, just don't hurt Leo." "Smart girl," Mom smirked. I signed the bottom of the page. Then I pushed the folder toward her. "You need to sign as a witness," I said. "And Tiffany needs to sign as the beneficiary." "Fine," Mom grabbed the pen. She didn't read a word. She just wanted the victory. She scrawled her signature. "I'll get Tiffany." Tiffany breathed in a moment later. "Is it done? Do I own it?" "Just sign here, sweetie," Mom said. "And it's all yours." Tiffany didn't even look at the page. She was looking at her reflection in the mirror, as she blindly signed the document that legally confessed to her own fraud. "Yay!" Tiffany clapped. "Finally. Now, Riley, go steam my veil. And try not to burn it." I took the signed folder. "I'll just go file this in the office safe. To be secure." "Go," Mom waved me off. "And stay out of the photos. You look tired." I walked out of the suite, clutching the folder against my chest. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might crack a rib. They had signed it. They had literally signed their own confessions. I walked down the hallway, past the guests beginning to arrive. I saw Marcus standing at the altar, looking pale but resolved. I caught his eye. I tapped the folder in my hand. He gave a nearly imperceptible nod. The trap was sprung. Now, all we had to do was wait for the I do. Or rather, the I don't. I went to the A/V booth at the back of the room. The technician, a guy named Dave who had worked for me for 5 years, looked up. "Hey boss," he said. "Ready for the slideshow?" "Change of plans, Dave," I said, handing him a USB drive. "Don't play the montage of Tiffany and Marcus in Paris. Play this instead." When I give the signal. Dave plugged it in and opened the file. His eyes went wide. Boss. This is. I know, I said. Just do it. With pleasure, Dave grinned. He never liked Tiffany anyway. She once threw a latte at him. I took my position at the back of the room. The music swelled. The doors opened. Here comes the bride. Here comes the storm. The organ music swelled, shaking the very floorboards of the venue I owned. It was Wagner's bridal chorus, played with a pomp and circumstance that felt almost satirical given what was about to happen. I stood in the shadows at the back of the room, near the AV booth. I was still wearing my server's uniform, the black vest and white shirt that marked me as the help. My mother had insisted I stay out of sight, but I had a front row seat to her destruction. The doors swung open. Tiffany appeared. I have to admit, she looked breathtaking. Her dress was a custom Vera Wang that cost more than my son's private school tuition for 3 years, charged to a credit card I had frozen just 20 minutes ago. She walked with her chin held high, clutching a bouquet of white orchids. The same orchids my mother had extorted $50,000 from me to buy. Every step she took down that aisle was a step onto a landmine. I watched the guests. 300 of the city's elite. Politicians, business tycoons, socialites. They turned to admire her, whispering about how lucky she was, how perfect this match was. They saw a fairy tale princess. I saw a parasite in silk. My mother was in the front row, dabbing fake tears with a lace handkerchief. My father stood puffing his chest out, looking like the proud patriarch of a dynasty he had bankrupted decades ago. Chad was already asleep with his eyes open, probably hungover from the rehearsal dinner. And then there was Marcus. He stood at the altar, hands clasped behind his back. He wasn't smiling. Usually, the groom tears up or beams when he sees his bride. Marcus looked like a judge waiting for the defendant to take the stand. His face was made of granite. Tiffany reached the altar. She handed her flowers to her maid of honor, one of the girls who had laughed at me earlier, and took Marcus's hands. She looked up at him with those wide, innocent eyes that had fooled me for 30 years. "You look beautiful," I saw her mouth the words. Marcus didn't respond. He just nodded, a stiff, jerky motion. The priest, a man my parents had flown in specifically for the prestige, cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved," he began, his voice booming through the speakers. "We are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." I looked over at Dave in the AV booth. His finger was hovering over the enter key on his laptop. He looked at me, eyebrows raised, waiting for the signal. I held up one hand. Wait. I wanted them to get to the vows. I wanted Tiffany to say the words. I wanted her to lie in front of God and everyone before we pulled the rug out. "Do you, Tiffany Jenkins, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" the priest asked. "To have and to hold, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Tiffany said. Her voice was clear, confident. She squeezed Marcus's hands. "And do you, Marcus Vance?" the priest turned to him. "Take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" The room went silent. A pin drop would have sounded like a gunshot. Marcus looked at Tiffany. He looked at her diamond earrings, bought with stolen money. He looked at her grandmother's bracelet on her wrist, my bracelet. He took a slow breath. Marcus started. My mother leaned forward, her face ecstatic. This was it. The moment she secured her retirement. Marcus repeated. He pulled his hands away from Tiffany's. "I have a question first." A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. The priest looked baffled. "Mr. Vance. This is the ceremony." "I know," Marcus said, his voice amplified by the lapel microphone. It was steady, cold, and loud. But before I promise to share my life with someone, I think we should clear up a few things about assets. Tiffany laughed nervously. Marcus, honey, what are you doing? We can talk about business later. No, Marcus said. We talk about it now. You told me this venue belongs to your family. You told me you are a partner in Phoenix Events. You told me you built this company. Yes, of course, Tiffany stammered, glancing at the crowd. Her smile was starting to crack. Why are we doing this now? Because, Marcus turned to face the audience. He looked straight at the camera recording the wedding video. I don't like being married to a liar. He looked back at the AV booth. He looked right at me. Riley, he said. If you would, please. Every head in the room turned. 300 people spun around to look at the back of the room. They saw me. The unwanted maid. The server. I stepped out of the shadows. I walked over to the booth and nodded at Dave. Hit it, Dave. The massive projection screen behind the altar, which was supposed to display a montage of their romantic vacation photos, flickered to life. But it wasn't a photo of Paris. It was a bank statement. Blown up to 10 feet tall, the numbers were impossible to miss. It was the family support spreadsheet I had shown Marcus. The highlighted rows showed Tiffany allowance, Tiffany rent, Chad bail money, mom Botox. Gasps erupted from the pews. What is this? My mother shrieked, standing up. Turn it off. Technical difficulties. Turn it off. It's not a glitch, Mom, my voice boomed. I had grabbed the handheld microphone from the booth. I walked down the center aisle, slow and deliberate. This is the receipt, I said. On the screen, the image changed. It was the security footage from the coat check room. It showed Tiffany digging through my purse, pulling out my Amex Black card, and slipping it into her bra. That's fake. Tiffany screamed, her face turning a blotchy red. That's a deep fake. Marcus, she's using AI to frame me. Is the audio AI too? I asked. The speakers crackled and then, Tiffany's voice filled the room. The recording from the bathroom. He's clueless. Men see what they want to see. I told him Phoenix Events is the family business. Once I'm Mrs. Marcus Vance, we can finally force Riley out. We'll sue her for embezzlement. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The kind of silence that happens when a bomb hits but hasn't exploded yet. I stopped walking 10 feet from the altar. I looked at my sister. She looked small now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by naked terror. You called me a used product, I said, my voice echoing off the high ceilings. You called my son a bastard. You treated me like a servant in the building that I own. I gestured to the walls around us. Did you tell them, Tiffany? I asked softly. Did you tell them that every brick, every light fixture, every chair in this room belongs to me? Did you tell them that the mysterious investor you bragged about is the sister you keep in the basement? Tiffany trembled. She looked at Marcus, pleading. Marcus, please. She's jealous. She's insane. You know me. Marcus looked at her with an expression of pure disgust. I thought I did, he said. But it turns out, I was just the next Mark. He reached into his tuxedo pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The loan document with the forged signature. My company owns the debt your parents took out in Riley's name, Marcus said. You tried to steal from me to pay for a wedding to me. He laughed, a harsh, dry sound. That is a level of stupidity that is almost impressive. My mother rushed the aisle, grabbing my arm. Her nails dug into my skin. Stop this, she hissed, her eyes wild. You ungrateful wretch. You are ruining everything. Fix this. Tell them it's a joke. I looked down at her hand on my arm. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel the need to please her. I felt nothing but pity. "Get your hands off me," I said calmly. "Or what?" she sneered. "You'll cry." "No," I said. "Or I'll have security remove you from my property for trespassing." I signaled to the two large men in suits standing by the exit, private security I had hired that morning. They started walking toward us. "You can't do this," my father shouted, finally finding his voice. "We are the Jenkins family. We own this town." "You own nothing," I said. "And as of 10 minutes ago, you don't even own your dignity." The chaos in the room was absolute. Guests were standing, recording on their phones, whispering frantically. This wasn't just a ruined wedding, it was the social scandal of the decade. And I was the conductor. Tiffany was hyperventilating at the altar. Her mascara was running, creating black streaks down her face that looked like cracks in a porcelain mask. "Marcus, baby, listen," she sobbed, reaching for him again. "We can fix this. I'll sign a prenup. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me." Marcus stepped back, adjusting his cufflinks. "Leave you? Tiffany, I was never with you. I was with a character you invented." He turned to the priest. "Sorry, Father. No wedding today. But please enjoy the hors d'oeuvres. Riley paid for them, after all." Then, Marcus turned to me. He gave me a small, respectful nod, the kind one general gives another on the battlefield. "She's all yours, Riley." I stepped up to the platform, taking the spot where the groom should have been. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw people who had laughed at me yesterday. I saw the cousins who mocked my clothes. I saw the high society that deemed me unwanted. "I want to clarify something," I said into the mic. "My family seems to think that because I am a single mother, because I work for a living, because I don't wear designer labels, that I am weak. They mistook my silence for submission. They mistook my generosity for stupidity." I pulled the duplicate folder from my jacket pocket, the one Mom and Tiffany had signed just an hour ago. "This morning," I continued, holding the document up, "my mother forced me to sign what she thought was a transfer of my company to her. She threatened to take my son away if I didn't." A collective gasp went through the room. Threatening a child was a line even these people wouldn't cross. But I smiled, and it was a genuine smile this time. They didn't read what they were signing. In their greed, they signed this. I opened the folder and motioned to Dave. The document appeared on the big screen. Confession of fraud and admission of liability. The text was zoomed in. "I, Tiffany Jenkins, and I, Linda Jenkins, hereby admit to the theft of funds from Riley Jenkins. We acknowledge that we have no ownership in Phoenix Events. We accept full legal responsibility for the fraudulent loans obtained in Riley Jenkins' name." Below it were their signatures. Bold. Clear. Undeniable. "You signed a confession," I said, looking at my mother. "You admitted to everything. The theft. The fraud. The forgery. And you did it in front of a notary." My mother's face went white. She looked like she was having a stroke. She snatched the folder from the table where the marriage license was supposed to be, but it was too late. The image was already digital. "You tricked us," she shrieked. "You deceitful little snake." "I learned from the best," I replied. Tiffany sank to the floor, her dress billowing around her like a deflated parachute. She buried her face in her hands. The golden child had finally tarnished. "But I'm not done," I said. I looked at Chad, who was trying to sneak out the side door. "Chad!" I called out. He froze. "The security team at the door has a list of the credit cards you opened in my name," I said. "And the police are waiting in the lobby. They'd like to have a chat about identity theft." Chad bolted. He actually tried to run. But he was out of shape and drunk. The security guards intercepted him before he even reached the exit sign. The sight of my arrogant brother being restrained, shouting, "Do you know who I am?" was a level of satisfaction I can't even describe. I turned back to the crowd. "I apologize for the disruption," I said, my voice calm and professional again. "But as the owner of this venue, I have a strict policy against harboring criminals. Please enjoy the open bar. The wedding is cancelled, but the party is just celebrating a different kind of freedom today." I dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. The room erupted. Not in anger but in shock and adrenaline. People were clapping. Some were cheering. I saw Sarah, my assistant, standing by the kitchen doors, pumping her fist in the air with tears in her eyes. I walked down the steps of the altar. Marcus met me at the bottom. "That was brutal," he said. "That was necessary," I corrected. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm better than okay," I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was carrying for decades. "I'm free." The hour following the ceremony was a blur of flashing lights, both from cameras and police cruisers. My mother tried to play the victim until the very end. When the officers arrived, summoned by Mrs. Higgins, who had been sitting quietly in the back row sipping tea, Mom threw herself on the floor, clutching her chest, claiming I was giving her a heart attack. "It's a performance," I told the paramedic who rushed over. "Check her vitals." "She's fine." They did. She was fine. Her blood pressure was high, but that was just the rage. "Linda Jenkins," the officer said, helping her up not so gently. "We have a warrant for your arrest regarding bank fraud and forgery." "You can't arrest me," she screamed as they cuffed her. She looked at me, her eyes filled with hate. "I gave you life. You owe me. You are nothing without this family." "I am everything without this family," I said quietly. "I am finally myself." Tiffany was still sitting on the altar steps, staring blankly at the wall. She looked like a broken doll. Marcus walked up to her. He didn't offer a hand. He just handed her an envelope. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. "An eviction notice," Marcus said. "My company foreclosed on the lake house 20 minutes ago. You and your parents have 48 hours to vacate the premises. Whatever is left inside after that becomes property of the bank." "But where will I go?" Tiffany asked, tears streaming down her face again. "I don't have anywhere. I don't have any money." "You have a degree," Marcus said coldly. "I suggest you use it. Or maybe ask Riley for a job. I hear she's hiring dishwashers." Tiffany looked at me. For a split second, I saw the old expectation in her eyes, the belief that I would cave, that I would fix it, that I would pull out my checkbook and save her like I always did. I looked at her. I thought about the basement she wanted to put me in. I thought about the feral comment about my son. "Actually," I said, "we're fully staffed. Try McDonald's. They're always hiring." I turned my back on her and walked away. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, ignoring that instinct to help. But it was also the most important. I was setting a boundary. Finally. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Because I had the signed confession, the legal battle was short. Mrs. Higgins was ruthless. She filed restraining orders against all three of them to protect me and Leo. She froze the remaining joint assets. Chad was denied bail because he was deemed a flight risk. Apparently he had looked up countries with no extradition treaty on his phone during the rehearsal dinner. He was facing 5 to 10 years for identity theft and grand larceny. My parents lost everything. The lake house, the cars, the status. The community turned on them instantly. In high society, losing your money is a sin, but being exposed as frauds is a death sentence. Their friends deleted their numbers. The country club revoked their membership. They were left with nothing but their debt and their bitterness. A week later, I went to the lake house to oversee the final walkthrough with the bank inspector. It was empty. They had taken everything they could carry, the curtains, the light bulbs, even the copper wiring from the walls in the basement. Petty to the end. I walked into the basement, the damp, dark space they had designated for my son. I saw the mold on the walls. I saw the tiny, barred windows. I felt a shiver run down my spine. They really hated me. It wasn't just selfishness, it was disdain. They wanted to punish me for being the one who survived without them. "Ms. Jenkins?" the bank inspector asked. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, walking back up the stairs into the sunlight. "Just closing a chapter." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "Lunch? We need to discuss the venue contract for my company's holiday party. I hear the owner is tough but fair." I smiled. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a player in the game. And for the first time, I held all the cards. That evening, I sat down with Leo. I had been terrified that the fallout would hurt him, that he would miss his grandparents. "Mom," he asked, looking up from his Lego set. "Is Grandma mad at us?" "Grandma is in a timeout," I explained gently. "For a very long time. Because she did some bad things." Leo thought about this for a second. "Did she steal your bracelet?" I paused. "Yes. She did." "Good," Leo said, snapping a red brick onto his spaceship. "I didn't like her anyway. She smelled like mean perfume." I laughed. Out loud. A real, belly laugh. Kids know. They always know. I had been trying to protect him from a toxicity he had already sensed. "You know what, Leo?" I kissed the top of his head. "We're going to be just fine." 6 months later. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new house. It wasn't a mansion, and it wasn't a lake house. It was a beautiful, modern home near Leo's school, bought with my own money, in my own name, with no mortgages and no strings attached. I sat at the kitchen island, drinking coffee out of a mug that said "Boss Lady," a gag gift from Sarah. The doorbell rang. It was Marcus. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo today, he was in jeans and a polo shirt. He held a box of pastries. "Peace offering," he said, walking in. "My team is driving Sarah crazy with the lighting requests for the gala." "Sarah can handle it," I said, handing him a coffee. "She's the VP of operations now. She scares people more than I do." Marcus laughed. "We weren't dating, not really. We were friends. Partners. Survivors of the same shipwreck. Maybe one day it would be more, but for now the peace was enough." "Did you hear?" Marcus asked, leaning against the counter. "About Tiffany?" I took a sip. "I heard. Tiffany was working as a hostess at a chain restaurant on the other side of town. Rumor had it she was living in a studio apartment with 3 roommates. She had tried to reach out to me once, a text message asking for just a small loan to get back on my feet. I had blocked the number without replying. My parents were living in a trailer park 2 towns over. Dad was working as a greeter at a hardware store. Mom was still mom. She spent her days posting on Facebook about how she was the victim of a cruel conspiracy, but nobody engaged with her posts anymore. Chad was in minimum security prison, working in the laundry. He finally had a steady job. "It's strange," I said, looking out at the garden where Leo was playing with his new puppy. "I thought I would feel guilty. I spent my whole life feeling guilty for everything. But I don't." "You shouldn't," Marcus said. "You gave them every chance. You carried them for years. They chose to bite the hand that fed them." "I know," I said. "It's just the silence. It's so quiet without their drama. I'm still getting used to the peace. Enjoy it, Marcus clinked his mug against mine. You earned it. My phone rang. It was Mrs. Higgins. Good morning, Riley, her crisp voice came through. Just wanted to let you know the court finalized the protective order extension. And the bank recovered another chunk of the funds from the auction of your parents' jewelry. It's been deposited into Leo's college fund. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins, I said. You're a miracle worker. I'm just a lawyer, dear. You're the miracle. Most people never break free. You not only broke free, you burned the cage down. I hung up and walked outside. The air smelled like fresh cut grass and freedom. I watched Leo run across the lawn, the puppy chasing his heels. He looked happy. Safe. Unburdened by the generational trauma I had absorbed for him. I looked down at my wrist. The diamond tennis bracelet, Nana Rose's bracelet, glinted in the sun. The police had recovered it from Tiffany's jewelry box the day of the arrest. I had it cleaned, the loose stones tightened. It felt heavy, but in a good way. It felt like an anchor, reminding me of who I was. I wasn't the unwanted maid. I wasn't the ATM. I wasn't the used product. I was Riley Jenkins. CEO. Mother. And for the first time in my life, the protagonist of my own story. The fork I had tapped against the glass that night didn't just stop a wedding. It shattered a mirror maze of lies. And standing here, in the clear light of day, I liked the woman I saw in the reflection. Sometimes, you have to lose your family to find yourself. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't ruining them, it's just being happy without them. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you made it all the way to the end, comment the letter A below. If you've ever had to cut off toxic family, share your experience in the comments. You are not alone. And don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for more stories of justice served.